This is Thames News from London.
Arab mansion robbed of millions, police hunt armed and dangerous gang. Ford strike threat over as 6 out of 10 say yes. Princess bows to Islamic tradition. And Piccadilly gets a new landmark. Hello and a very good evening. A former Arab diplomat is tonight still counting the cost after his Buckinghamshire mansion was ransacked by robbers. He already knows that the loss runs into many millions of pounds. Police are still drawing up a full list of the gold, jewellery and works of art that were stolen. They say the gang were armed, that they're dangerous and they should not be approached.
The armed gang held the Sheikh's employees at gunpoint while they used explosives to blast their way into a strong room. Police say the raiders struck at around 8 last night as caretaker William Walworth was coming home from his local pub.
He didn't come in regular and he always left at irregular times, so, I think he was, a good person for the job round there.
It was as the caretaker stopped to open these gates to Dropmore House in Burnham that he was surprised by the gang. They forced him to drive to the main house and switch off the security system. Then William and his wife Alice were taken to their own lodge next door and handcuffed to a table. The couple were held hostage at gunpoint until about 6:30 this morning when the raiders left and they managed to escape. But it was while they were being guarded by 2 of the raiders that 2 others went through the house and tried to break into the strong room. When explosives failed, they resorted to pickaxes.
Well, all I heard was this morning, just after 6, I heard the gates going and a lot of bangings of car doors, and I didn't take any notice and went back to sleep, I'm afraid.
Have you ever seen the people who live there? What do they like?
Well, I never see them. I mean, he's hardly ever here. I think it's something like 4 years, I believe, since he last visited the house. I mean, they wave as they go past in their Rolls Royces, and that's about all one sees of them.
One theory is that the armed raiders were after this grand collection of silverware. It had been on display at Christie's in London and was moved yesterday morning to be returned to its security vault.
The offenders, in fact, at least 4 of them, have got at least 4 firearms in or with a black Vauxhall Viceroy motor car, and obviously we must regard them as armed and dangerous. And I would urge any member of the public, if they see the vehicle or the men, not to approach them under any circumstances.
The stolen vehicle is a black Vauxhall Viceroy car, registration JAN 148W. The Sheikh's one of the wealthiest men in the world. He owns property and a banking service. 3 years ago, he paid £2 million for the release of his brother Sadiq, who was kidnapped for 11 days by an international gang. Tonight, it's still unclear how much of the Sheikh's wealth was taken. Deborah Bain, the Thames News.
2 armed raiders are at large after escaping a full-scale manhunt by police in South London. Scotland Yard's crack firearms team, the Blue Berets, led the operation and a police helicopter hovered over the scene in Tooting. They sealed off a street where 2 armed security van raiders were believed to have gone to ground. The van was ambushed in Gatton Road. The gang then sped off with their haul to Mandrake Road, where they abandoned their getaway car.
Armed police were sent into Mandrake Road in Tooting after a raid at a nearby post office. One armed man took a cash box and was driven away by an accomplice. They dumped the car and was seen running into Mandrake Road. It's now more than 3 hours since the armed man was first seen. The biggest fear is that he and his accomplice could be in one of the homes behind us, possibly with hostages. As people arrive home from work and school, they're being escorted by armed police to their property for a thorough search before they're allowed inside.
We just have to check to make sure. We're going through every possible step to take precautions to make sure it's safe for the public to go home. And when my officers have finished this exercise, this sweep now, we will regroup and decide what our next step will be.
What options do you have?
My options then are to either wait until the remaining occupants arrive home, or indeed, if there is any grounds to enter any particular house, if they see something which gives grounds for reasonable suspicion, then we'll enter by force if necessary.
This is a very dangerous situation, would you say?
I'd like to play down the danger angle. We are at the moment taking every precaution to minimise the danger to the public. It is because an armed raid has taken place and suspects were seen to go into this road that we feel it's necessary to take these steps to make sure nobody is hurt.
It's not certain what kind of gun the man was carrying, but inside the abandoned car, police found a handgun and both live and blank ammunition. This is Teresa Driscoll in Tooting for Thames News.
And in the past few minutes, we've heard that the armed police have withdrawn after completing their search of all the houses in Mandrake Road. The raiders are still at large. The threat of an all-out strike at Dagenham and other Ford motor plants has been lifted after manual workers voted to accept a 2-year pay deal. Nearly 6 out of 10 Dagenham workers said yes to a 10.2% pay offer, in line with a vote elsewhere. The settlement, which is above inflation, will be seen as a pace-setter for other industries.
Today's vote allows both unions and management to claim victory. Ford will be happy to have avoided a damaging all-out strike, and union negotiators have achieved a good deal for their members. Workers will get a 10.2% rise in the first year and 8% or the inflation rate plus an additional 2.5% in the second. There's also an extra 2 days holiday. The government, however, will be unhappy. Ford have now set a double-figure benchmark that unions in other industries will be aiming at. 59% of Ford's 32,000 manual workers voted to accept the deal, including the 3 plants at Dagenham. But there were still signs of their traditional militancy. The 3,500 assembly line workers accepted the deal by only 47 votes. On Monday, Ford wrote to all workers warning that non-acceptance of the deal could put their jobs in jeopardy. Union leaders expect all unofficial action to end.
The way we vote is a very democratic way, and clearly 2 years ago the minority accepted the majority decision and went on strike. On this occasion we would be expecting that the majority decision would hold. All workers would be abiding by that decision not to strike.
How much do you think the management's letter warning of possible job losses, how much did that sway the vote, do you think?
I think if anything that caused people to vote more for a strike. People are well aware that we're for a high wage, high productivity economy. High wages don't cause a problem to a plant like Dagenham.
As the day shift left this evening, most workers seemed happy with the deal.
Ain't really doing very good for Dagenham if they're going on strike. I mean, they close that down, it's threatening to close the falls down, that's Dagenham gone down straight, isn't it?
We want to work, earn money. I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got kids to feed.
Did you think it was a fair offer?
Yeah, it's nearly 40 quid, isn't it, by November? More than most people, more than the poor outbusinessmen have got.
A computer expert who's conducting a one-man campaign against a £35 million motorway has launched a court battle against it. John McNulty from Watford says he's prepared to lose thousands of pounds in his personal crusade against the planned extension of the M1. Mike Pearce reports.
If Hertfordshire County Council and the Department of Transport have their way, this 2-mile stretch of greenbelt land at Watford will be turned into a 4-lane motorway. The plan is to link junction 5 of the M1 with Watford town centre